Hello there. Welcome to another session. Today is a very exciting session because we're diving into the launch of the book. I'm going to be talking a lot about that. And there is two books actually. So we'll talk about the first one and we're going to dive into really some of the content from the book. Today's session is about the value from that. So before I get carried away, please give me a thumbs up. Let me know that the technology is working. You can hear me, you can see me, and just give me some love. All right, so I will keep an eye on that, and welcome. Good to see everybody. And I hope you are ready for work today because there's just so much that I want to share and cover. As you know, we've been building towards the launch of my new book, which started out as 400 topics, and we decided that it was better to break it up into two books. So we will be launching the leadership intelligence version this month. All right. So if you are enjoying that today and get some interest in that area, we would love for you to put your hand up and I'll show you what to do and how to do that. Book one, Leadership Intelligence, we have 196 problems that it will help you solve and deal with and give you the practices that you need. Book two will be the coach's version to back that up and to help coaches and leaders that are acting as coaches for their team to then solve more problems. And there's 214 of those. So there's over 400 in total. This is an amalgamation of so much work over the years, more than 20 years of content that I've been collecting through personal observation, through the research and development that we've done. It's very exciting. Okay, so watch for that. Today, as I mentioned, I'm taking part one of the book. And I'm just going to dive into what that part one will help you do. So this is taking really a snippet from part one. There is 4 chapters in there, so there is a lot to cover this month. I'm actually allocating 1 week to each chapter, and we'll do a wrap-up session in week 5. So do join us on this journey. I think for the rest of the year, we'll be covering all of the contents of these books. These videos should be used in parallel with the book. Okay, so as we move forward with this, all of this will be included in our online courses so that you can access that. In fact, there will also be new assessments that we are launching to help you with your own self-awareness, self-discovery. So this is an example of the first assessment that is being launched, and you'll get access to that. And I'll show you where that is. Just stay with me till the end, and I will point you in the right direction. So let me get started. Let's get the clicker working. Again, hello and welcome. Thanks for joining me today. Today we're going into what you can't see and how that's impacting your leadership style with your team or in anything that you do. So, whilst I'm really talking about the workplace, this can be applied anywhere. It can be applied in your business. It can be applied at home in many different situations. What I'll be walking through today is that number one blind spot that I'm just talking about right now is your ability to get past the invisible, right? Okay, so We tend to live in our minds a little bit. We don't see what's going on because we observe things through our lens and not through other people's lens. So how do you deal with that, right? Self-awareness is not enough, and I'll talk about that. We'll talk about some framework that you can use, some daily practices. So this is where you'll be doing some work today. I'm going to give you a 30-day assignment that you can apply to really shift your success in life and in business and in your leadership. So that's basically the agenda for today, and let's get started. So the first thing is the question for you, what's holding you back? The biggest barrier in leadership impact is invisible, right? This goes back from my very first career job. The challenge with leading people is you don't get the instantaneous feedback, that gratification. It's so much easier to work on a puzzle or a piece of software or a task because you can see it finished. But when you're leading people, you don't see the impact of that immediately. Sometimes you get that feedback if you ask for it, but most times the impact of your leadership style is invisible, okay? Other people see it, but you don't. So the quick question for you, again, you'll get access to the more detailed assessment, but in the past 30 days, how many times have you made a decision that you regretted later? How many times did you think that you know what to do, but you were stuck? You didn't execute it. You know what was going on there? How many times did you react emotionally and that surprised you? Why did I blow up like that? How many times did you wonder where people are in their journey and how they are responding and what they're doing and why they're doing it and so forth? Blind spots cost you. They're costing you your credibility. It's being eroded when you don't see that, you don't resolve it, you don't act on it. I often talk about, if there is something that I am doing wrong, I know that I have the ability to change that. That's the advantage of neuroplasticity, neuroscience. We are not fixed, okay? For decades, we've been told your personality profile, you are fixed, you can't change it. We see a lot of focus on strengths and saying avoid your weaknesses. All of these things are really not helping people, and leaders especially need to be like chameleons. You need to be able to change, right? Your leadership is what other people observe. It's not what you think you are doing, okay? Make sure you understand that. So your delays in making decisions, how does that impact your team? How does that impact the organization? The bottom line, it's costing you, right? When team is disengaged, what is that telling you? Is it them or is it you, right? Okay, so we need to understand, if people are not meeting your expectations, you need to ask the question, is it them or is it me, right? Are you missing opportunities? We've talked about AI and the application of that, and where it shouldn't be applied and the human element. We've talked about all of that in the past few weeks. So now we need to, refocus on the leadership. We've talked about the technology, and we'll come back and we'll talk some more about the technology and the business tools and the marketing and so forth. But for now, I'm really honing in on the leadership, your leadership, the human element of what you do. Okay. The patterns that lead to frustration. Okay, so The number one blind spot then is this: you can't see your own behavior patterns from their perspective. Maybe that should be added to this slide. So you think you can look in the mirror, you can see your patterns, you can see your behavior, but you can't put yourself in their shoes unless you draw that out, and we're going to talk about that. You tend to automatically, because behavior patterns are unconscious, triggered by situations, they're unconscious patterns, they are habits that you leap into automatically. That's the neurological side of things. This is stuff that, because you do it automatically, unconsciously, you're not aware of how that shows up, how that impacts people. It's instantaneous, and we need to help you do that. And I'll show you what to do on how to shift from that. Others see it before you do. Okay, it will undermine your leadership, and without warning is an important point there. There's just so much on these slides, so excuse me if I'm actually covering the slides. Usually I just go all over the place, but there's just so much today to cover. The situation, and I've talked about meetings many times and how you manage those meetings, and you should go back and watch some of those videos if you haven't done that, because some of these points have already been covered, but I want to look at them again from this perspective of that blind spot. You run a meeting and you don't realize what's happened in the meeting because you're frustrated that the team isn't engaging. They're not asking you questions. They're not repeating things. They're not using their brain to contribute to the meeting. That can be quite frustrating, right? And to compensate, sometimes we just dominate the meeting. When there's silence, we keep talking instead of waiting for people to participate. Your blind spot is you think you're encouraging people, and by sharing more, talking more, or giving them, the goals, the direction, all of these things we've talked about. Even in some of the employee engagement programs, we talk about do people on your team know where you're going, the goals of the company, their role in the goals of the company. You think you've shared these things, but if you're the only one talking, they're not engaged. They are not part of that process. Okay, so traditional self-awareness, and this is the trap, has focused a lot on, I'm thinking this was back in February, or 4 months ago, 6 months ago. We talked about the 95% of leaders, or is it most leaders, think they are self-aware, but 95% of them are truly not self-aware. And this is why, right? They are not really looking at from other people's perspective. They are looking at what they value, right? They go, I'm self-aware, but it's based on what I value, as opposed to what other people value. Okay, how I prefer to work, my strengths or weaknesses, right? So I know myself from my lens, right? But real self-awareness comes from pattern recognition. I'm going to talk about that. Okay, the impact awareness, the impact on others, on projects, teams, everything that you do. And thirdly, the behavioral prediction. So the ability to now predict the impact of what you will have out there. So to put it in another context, there are 3 levels, right? The first level is that self-awareness that comes from my perspective, what I value, okay? The second level is seeing the impact that has on others through the reactions that you get. But the third level is really understanding the patterns and the pattern intelligence, as we call it, from different perspectives, the predictability of that. Very few leaders reach level 3, but our goal and the purpose of the book launch, all of these tools that I'm sharing with you, is to help us all elevate our awareness to that third level. I call it evolving, and you need to go through the exercises that I'm going to share with you today in order to evolve to that next level or the higher level. Okay, so here is the framework put simply for leadership intelligence, and we do a leadership intelligence certification program. Okay, and I'll be talking about that throughout the year so that you can have an opportunity to participate. It starts with pattern recognition, okay? Then the impact awareness and the behavior prediction as a third step. So what you are doing as you are doing it, that's the pattern recognition. We'll talk about that. How it's landing with others, how it's impacting with others. You need to understand others and the impact of different language on them. And that's where AccuMatch and behavior intelligence really shines and helps people do that. AccuMatch, as you know, is our behavior assessment tool that gives the specific scores that we use to interpret ourselves and interpret others and look at the relationship, the impact of those discussions, the impact of language, body language, and so forth. So, getting clarity on those steps, let's talk about the blind spot recognition, right? First, you need to see what you couldn't see before. How are you going to do that, right? Bias interruption. Catching the mental shortcuts, that misleading, the emotional mastery, being able to control what's happening. And I'm going to touch on how to do that. It's a 3-step process, basically. You need to learn how to catch yourself in that moment, and that doesn't happen instantly. So that's why I've developed a 30-day program for you that you'll be able to take away today. Okay. So these steps help you to be the starting point of that journey. So the process to recognize what's happening. So notice the outcome, what actually happened, okay? And then being able to go back and look at what you did that contributed to that. If the presupposition in NLP is communication is the response you get, we're going a little bit beyond that. We're saying behavior is really the response you get. So what did you do that contributed to that result, that feedback that you got? Okay. What couldn't you see at the moment? So how did that happen? Why did I not get the result that I wanted? And how did that happen? And then installing a method to catch yourself so that you're not just automatically doing that. So if you like, the scenario is like this. You're in a team meeting, you've done something, people aren't contributing, they're not feeding back. You need to ask yourself, okay, what did I do to contribute to that? What happened? What did I miss? And how can I catch myself next time so that I don't repeat that pattern? Okay. And that's the critical piece where change starts to happen. Okay. So the pattern is things like this. So these are some examples of patterns to watch for. You're giving solutions instead of asking questions. So, in that meeting scenario, if you are talking and not asking questions and not asking for feedback and contribution, or just targeting questions to specific people, you are just puking out what you think needs to happen. I call it puking because it's just from your perspective and it's not taking other people's perspective. You're hiding uncertainty. Sometimes we do that as leaders. Someone asks a tough question. Oh, I better act as if I know what I'm doing. Okay, that's the wrong thing. That is a blind spot. You need to explore and be vulnerable, humble. All of these words that we throw around, those are really important things to learn how to catch yourself. We're going to talk about the catching yourself. Micromanaging when you think you are supporting people, right? Have you done that? You probably have, right? We had a Acumatch map just earlier this week. Actually, we were looking at a coach's client and the situation of this person thought they were a high other focused on their team, but their level of skepticism about people and their quality control, seeing all the things that could go wrong, forced them to be very high control. They were jumping in and doing stuff for people, thinking that they are providing support, but they're actually diluting that relationship that they have with their team. The team doesn't participate. There was all kinds of impact from that. I digress. Making the assumptions, making decisions, based on incomplete information. It's really more about the assumption, the guessing that people understood, or not having the conversation, not asking the questions, not diving into what needs to be done. And then lastly, on this slide, I'm sure the list is huge. These were just the top ones that we found. The busyness badge, look, I'm so busy, there's so much going on, but not being very effective. And so, we need to learn how to manage that. And we've talked about I've talked about that in multiple of the previous sessions. So let's start solving this problem. This will only take you, 3 to 5 minutes per day, right? But you need to do it for 30 days, okay? And allow yourself to be human. If you miss a day, don't just go, oh, well, it's all screwed up. And, pick yourself up and do it, pick it up the next day. Sometimes that regression means you need to start from day one again. But persevere. You will develop new neural pathways. We call them habits. And the first habit you need to develop is the habit of catching yourself. Okay, so this is the process to do that. So first, ask at the end of each day, take 3 to 5 minutes. Ask yourself, what surprised me today? Okay, what pattern might I have been blind to? What was the pattern that you're blind to? You just need to pick one. You don't need to boil the ocean here and pick 1,000 things. You just need to do one. If you do that for 30 days, you will notice significant change. Okay. What did others notice? And how are you going to catch yourself tomorrow? And we talk about the catching yourself sometimes is very difficult. Some people use a rubber band. Some people have colleagues help them with that. So we can talk about that. We do that in the training programs, the certification. So we teach all of these methods so that you can actually develop your leadership or your coaching with leaders in these areas. Okay. Installing external intelligence. All right. Okay, big word. But basically, what we are trying to do is make sure you start to listen to what is happening. Ask people. Okay. Be vulnerable to that. Make sure that they believe that there are no consequences to them by giving you feedback, right? No one's going to give you feedback if they're afraid to lose their job when they give you feedback, right? Okay. So the first thing you need to do is make it possible for people to speak to you and open up to you and tell you that feedback so that you can learn, you can change. We're all human, right? You don't have something that nobody else has. Everybody has it. We just have it in different quantities, different qualities, and that is the differentiation. So by asking for feedback, you're respecting the fact that everybody has intelligence that they can offer and participate with you. So connecting the dots. Monthly pattern reviews, so you can do this once you've developed those behavior patterns and you're fixing them and you're doing your daily routine. Okay, you need to then review that. Your personal blind spot map, I call it, so you can actually map your progress. If you don't, data is king. We keep saying that, but what does that really mean? Data doesn't lie. If you have the reporting of all that you've done, it's tangible, you can see it, there's no guesswork, there is no intuition in it, it's just facts. Okay. So when you do that and you keep it, it's rewarding. You get the dopamine hit. You go, wow, I did that. Wow, I can do another one, right? And that's really the exciting part of that journey, to be able to do that. And again, in this webinar, I'm trying to cover a lot of things that are in the book, okay, and that we go into during the training, the leadership certification training course. So this week, okay, this month, what are you going to do? Okay, start with the daily patterns. Ask one person for feedback. Notice when you're surprised by the outcome. If you try the different approach, don't be surprised if you get those pleasant feedback, right? Pick that, do your blind spot map, the points, and stick with that for a month. If you do that for a month, we'll show you how to continue with that and the practice. Now, for those practice, if you want more detail, do reach out, because yes, the book isn't launched yet, but it is launching this month. Okay. And so you'll want to access the 196 different scenarios to find the one that fits you best, that you can start with, right? The practice sessions, maybe it's a combination of some of those. So I will, if we have time today, I will show you a little bit of how the book is laid out, or maybe we'll do that towards the end of the month when we launch the book. Okay, so here is your first month. If you do those exercises that I've just talked about, this is what you can expect to happen in that month, right? So week 1 and 2, when you start to make these notes and ask for that feedback, you'll start noticing these patterns after they happen. Okay, so that's the way the brain works, right? It's almost you do something and you go, oh shit, I did it again, right? So it's after the fact. Okay, you may not even see it that quickly. It might be you walk out of the meeting, you're sitting down, you have a cup of coffee, you have a quiet moment, you go, oh man, right? Okay, so that's what will happen. Weeks 3 and 4, if you continue with that pattern, this will start to shift. Okay, now I've coached a lot of clients on this and I've seen it firsthand, so this isn't made up stuff. It's real. It's how the neurological patterns in our brain work. Okay, you catch the pattern as they are happening. So this is the powerful stuff. You go into a meeting and you're just about to puke out what you've always done, and you catch yourself mid-sentence. I've done that, and I've seen people do it. It's pretty amazing when we're training people, especially in sales, when we're helping people to understand the importance of asking questions, and they're automatically been consulting for years. They want to puke out advice, and they have to catch themselves mid-sentence to turn what they were going to say into a question. It's so funny to watch, right? Somebody starts a sentence and stops midway. So that's your month 1. You keep doing this, and you're going to now not have to be after the fact or mid-sentence. You will be more prepared, especially if you learn AccuMatch. You will find all kinds of useful tools within the AccuMatch and the behavior intelligence training that feeds into leadership intelligence, so that you can start to predict and prevent those situations. Okay, that's the power of this program, this training, this education. All right? And then it becomes unconscious, like brushing your teeth. You do it without thinking, or driving, sometimes you do that without thinking. So there are just so many things, walking, you don't even think about that. It's an unconscious motor program that you do without realizing. So you want to evolve. I call it evolving through these stages. Everybody can do it. Right? I don't want to hear, I don't know how to do this. You can all do it. Just follow the steps as I've laid them out. Okay. So what's next this month? As I mentioned, we're really covering part 1 of the new book launching. Next week's session, the July 9th session, right? We'll dive into another one of those chapters. We'll talk about the biases that sabotage your results, right? So filters, biases are all impacting judgment. They're doing all kinds of impact on things that sabotage without you realizing. The action advantage, core principles, we'll touch on that. We'll talk about the emotional mastery, turning triggers into power, right? Understanding, the balance, when is the strength really valuable and when is the strength a sabotage, right? That's causing problems, having all the answers might be a strength, but it's actually not. In a leadership context, if you're giving all the answers and nobody on your team needs to think, right? That's not useful. So we'll dive into that in chapter 1 or part 1 of the book, with the 4 chapters really focusing on this self-awareness, the blind spots, so that when we go into part 2 of the book, we get into the workplace environment, and we delve into your coaching style as a leader and so forth in the following parts. So your 30-day plan, okay, remember this, your biggest barrier is invisible to you. You don't see it, you see it from your value. Your self-awareness isn't going to be enough. you need the pattern intelligence. You need to do the documenting. You need to develop that process that we call the pattern intelligence. It's studying the pattern like a scientist. Sorry, I'm a behavior scientist. That's what I do every single day. I look at patterns. I look at situations. I look at ways to help people navigate those. Okay. Leadership intelligence. Okay. And it can only happen. Change is not a pill that you can take. I've shown you, you got to do it daily for a month. Okay. So practice, practice, practice. We talk about that regularly. That's why I run weekly master classes with everybody. They're educational. We have experts from around the world involved in that, in multiple sessions, multiple topics, from business intelligence to behavior intelligence and leadership intelligence with Acumatch. The business intelligence is all the technology stuff. Yes, it's an IT oriented, but it's marketing, it's operations, it's processes, it's all the tools, the systems, sustainability, retaining clients, doing the follow-up, right? There's a lot in there. Pattern recognition, you need that feedback. Others see what you can't, so you need to ask them, right? Okay. Did I skip one? I think I did. Nope. Good. All right. So 7 days and join our next session. Once you've done your first 7-day practice routine, you can keep that going to get the results that you're looking for. All right. So complete the daily pattern check. All right. Ask people. Pick a person on your team for 1 week. Pick another person, another week. Okay. And that way you are evolving your knowledge about your patterns, your styles, so that you can practice new stuff. You're welcome to join our community. We're constantly evolving together. I don't have all the answers, so I encourage people to participate in those sessions. And yeah, join us next week. So that's it, wrapping it up today. Questions you can share online. You can ask us questions. We'll try and respond to all those questions. Did you understand the blind spot recognition process? Did you understand the pattern, right? What daily practices you need to do and the implementation. So we're going to go through those steps in more detail. Let me just share with you some links here, right? So if you want more information, do reach out. Okay. On the BIQ.org website, there is an inquire button. If you want to contact me, you can email me directly, or you can click the inquire button and send us a message. You want access to the assessment that I've talked about. This will be available after, at the end of this session. We will make this available. If you're interested to do your first stage, there is 4 of these each month that will be available to take you through that self-awareness journey. Okay. It only takes a few minutes for you to do that. You get a scorecard, you get some recommendations on what to do. And if you want to book a meeting, you have an option to do that at the end. So that's it. I'll watch for questions. I hope you've enjoyed today. I know there was a lot of information. It will be available on our website in the events section, so that you can play this back. And if you want more information, as usual, do reach out, and I hope we can help you through that journey.